Story 1. Knitting. I don't do it, and it looks kind of lame, but it is so cool to see a ball of yarn transform into a scarf or something similar. Story 2. I think it might be bird watching. It sounds simple, but serious enthusiasts travel all over the world, visit remote areas with local guides, and contribute to the field of ornithology as citizen scientists. As a community, they also do a lot of preservation work, especially with migratory birds that cross international borders. It has been great hearing everyone's stories about bird watching and birding. Thank you all for sharing your thoughts, knowledge, and anecdotes. Story 3. Crochet and basically any other needlework. You can make clothes, homeware, even stuffed animals, not to mention great gifts for anyone. Can also be done while watching a show or listening to a podcast when you get good enough. Story 4. Astronomy. Photons from deep space traveled hundreds, thousands, millions, and billions of light years to land on your retinas and be observed by you. Those are your photons. No one else will ever experience them as you did. The objects you see in deep space are as they were all those years ago, a snapshot in time for us. Currently, they could look very different or be gone entirely. We would never know. Story 5. Model airplanes, models of anything for that matter, train sets, etc. Story 6. I'm a historical reenactor. I've definitely had people tell me I'm weird or lame for doing this, but I've had so much fun in the last 15 years. I participated in the American Civil War sesquicentennial events. I've ridden in a cavalry charge. I fired an 8-inch Columbiad. I learned how to perform field amputations. I spent a week at sea on a 17th century tall ship. I've taken a ride in a B-17 Flying Fortress. Story 7. Origami. You would not believe how satisfying it is to fold paper perfectly. Story 8. Jigsaw puzzles are surprisingly relaxing and great for focus. Story 9. Stamp collecting sounds old-fashioned, but the history behind some stamps is fascinating, and finding rare ones feels like a treasure hunt. Story 10. Reading books. This comes from a person who loves to learn but, for some reason, stopped reading for pleasure for a good part of a decade. I recently got back into it, and I love learning and being taken to another place simply by words on a page. Story 11. Penmanship and calligraphy have a satisfyingly analog quality, a rich history, and a supportive community. The materials can be intricate, encouraging exploration of various combinations in an engaging way. Writing a great letter brings a thrilling sense of accomplishment, comparable to hitting an excellent golf shot. Unfortunately, my success rate is similar in both activities. Story 12. Lego. I have been told by many that I am so lame for it. Frankly, I do not care. I love building huge cities and collecting cool figures. Story 13. Dungeons and Dragons. It is not a nerd's game, it is actually so much fun. I hate multiplayer video games, but physical round-a-table Dungeons and Dragons games? I am all in for that. Also, in a similar vein, world building. My world building project is not related to Dungeons and Dragons or anything. It is something I just do for creativity. Story 14. Flying kites. So few people do it these days. You can see them lingering around, looking. They want to come up and talk to you, watch the kites, but many just walk on. Some folks do come up and talk, and I let them fly the kite for a while. Adults get very childlike when they do it. It's awesome. If their kids are with them, the kids want to fly the kites too. It's pretty amazing. There are these enormous whale and octopus kites, and we can pay out about 350 yards of line. They get way up there in the sky. Adults and kids alike just love it. I wish more people would do it. There is a kind of return to innocence when people fly kites. I wonder how many people today have never flown a kite before, despite it being a classic childhood hobby. Also, riding electric scooters lets you explore 8 to 10 miles around your home without having to drive a car or risk riding a motorcycle. You and the kids can all go together. It's so much fun. You find many cool, unusual places and things when you break out of the car driving routine and go exploring. Story 15. Beekeeping involves managing hundreds of thousands of stinging insects, ensuring they do not swarm, keeping them healthy, and understanding their behavior. It also results in a large amount of honey. Additionally, beeswax can be used to make candles, lip balms, hand creams, and more. Story 16. You would not be surprised to know that before I was married, no women were excited to find out that I am a stamp collector. Story 17. Roaming the internet to collect random obscure facts, so you always have interesting conversation topics. Story 18. Stained glass is expensive and time-consuming, but I make some pretty cool-looking sun catchers. Story 19. Miniature painting is often judged as a hobby only for nerds, but it is truly artistic. It is a good outlet for stress and has taught me about color composition, lighting, and other traditional art theories. Story 20. Lockpicking is a relatively low-cost hobby to start with a supportive community. You can progress at your own pace and no longer need to call a locksmith to rekey your house locks. Story 21. Getting deeper into lockpicking, and it is very satisfying when locks finally open. Story 22. Climbing seemed really basic to me. You ascend a rock wall, but there is much more mental puzzle solving than I thought. I am really enjoying the physical and mental challenge. Story 23. I often heard knitting be reserved for little old ladies, mainly by people who do not know knitting beyond what grandma used to do. Excuse you, I love having cozy hand-knitted sweaters that can literally last years if well taken care of, as opposed to 2 or 3 with fast fashion items. The same goes for blankets, socks, and hats. Do not even get me started on the wonders of crochet. You can make your own plush toys with that. Story 24. Metal detecting is exciting, whether at the park, a historical site, an old home, or a battlefield. You will find many old pop tabs and tin foil, but also coins, bottles with metal caps, buttons, spoons, and more. It is incredible to unearth something and be the first person to touch a lost treasure in a long time. The same applies to hunting for bottles in creek beds, riverbeds, or finding old dump sites. Just a couple of weeks ago, I found a Listerine bottle from the late 1910s. How amazing is that? Story 25. Amateur radio is popular among people aged 50 and above. It is exciting to communicate with individuals worldwide using an antenna or radios you have built yourself. There are many activities and opportunities available in this hobby. Story 26. Bird photography may look cute from the outside, but doing it feels like being a sniper. It requires a great deal of patience and careful observation of the bird's patterns and movements. Story 27. Driving is one of my favorite activities. I enjoy going on drives just for fun. Although it might sound dull as a hobby, I often do not share this with others. I love finding scenic roads to drive on, rolling the windows down, and playing my favorite music playlists. Sometimes I drive with my husband, and we talk while driving around for an hour or more. Road tripping is closely connected to my love of driving, and it is always enjoyable to explore new places by car. Story 28. Tabletop gaming, also known as modern board games, is often seen as a nerd thing. However, they are actually super fun and complex puzzles that you can solve with a group of friends. Many people say, "I don't like board games," only to become very interested once they finally try them. I always ask, do you like poker? Chess? Pool? If you enjoy those, you likely enjoy playing games. Even sports are a form of gaming. They just involve more physical activity than logic sometimes. This is a good lesson to challenge preconceived notions that may limit us from trying new things. Story 29. Slow pitch softball. I understand it is a group of people generally chasing the glory days. However, it is fun, harder than many people think, and it has made me more social and given me some of my best friends. Story 30. Keeping fish. Just kidding. That hobby is lame, US. My wallet. Story 31. Rock slings are easy to pick up and easy to use for weaving your own sling. Rocks are free, and this is a great way to activate all the muscles in your body and work on your natural target acquisition. Story 32. LARPing. Before the live-action role-playing. So let me get this straight. We meet during a convention at night. Instead of drinking at the bar, we pretend we have been invited to an art auction. We all play characters with motivations. Oh, and some of us have Cthulhu powers. Why can't we just drink? 2 hours later. Worship at the feet of my long-dead god. Worship me. For your skin will be blessed with the kiss of my larva. While I have always been keen on tabletop role-playing, the idea of dressing up and actually acting things out was just weird to me. But it is amazing. The first time I did it, I felt the excitement of playing pretend again without the negatives of getting grounded for saying curse words and hitting people with foam bats. Story 33. Playing chess. It seems like a niche game. Ironically, while in jail, I learned to play chess over a decade ago. Honestly, it saved my life during those 16 months of my sentence. And I still enjoy the game now. Keeps the brain active, and there is always something new to learn with chess. Lifting weights may seem uninteresting to some, but seeing me get bigger and stronger is very rewarding for me and my wife. Story 34. Warhammer. I find building and painting to be very relaxing, even if I am not very good. Playing games with friends is just so much fun. Story 35. Playing Dungeons and Dragons. I am 50 years old, and we play every week and have a lot of fun. Story 36. Ham radio. I know everyone thinks it's just a bunch of old men chatting on the radio, but we make contacts with people all around the world. We provide emergency communications during disasters and support for marathons, bicycle races, football games, and more. On the day after Christmas in 2004, I should have been playing with my kids and their new toys, but I was on my radio in my office. I heard a call for help from Banda Aceh, Indonesia. They had just been through a tsunami, everything was destroyed, and they were calling for help. From Atlanta, Georgia, there was not much I could do, so I called the U.S. Department of State and the United States Coast Guard in Miami. It was all I could think to do. I know I am not the only amateur radio operator to hear them and respond, but it feels good to be part of helping people when you can. Yes, we are nerds, but we are helpful nerds. Story 37. In general, hobbies considered uninteresting are enjoyable, and hobbies considered popular are mostly superficial. Story 38. I get my fun from being a Google local guide. It is a fulfilling hobby that brings me enjoyment. By day, I am a computer programmer. For fun, I am a Google local guide. Story 39. Learning songs, especially fast rap songs, by heart. It is very satisfying when you reach the speed of incredibly fast songs like Rap God and can actually keep up with it. Story 40. If anyone says hobby horsing, I will jump out through your monitor. It is lame, it stays lame, and it will never not be lame. Story 41. Building models may seem silly to many, but it is cathartic. Put on some music, learn patience, and express creativity all in one. Story 42. Tabletop wargaming combines the hobby of building, sculpting, and painting models with the actual gameplay focused on narrative and storytelling. There is something for every type of creative person and the social aspect of playing a game with others. Story 43. I went bird watching for the first time the other day because my housemate enjoys it. I thoroughly enjoyed it. Being out in nature reserves and watching wildlife is very calming. Story 44. Coin roll hunting. I buy boxes of $50 from a couple of different banks and hunt for silver coins. Surprisingly, there are still silver coins circulating. Any dimes, quarters, and $50 from 1964 and older are 90% silver. $50 from 1965 to 1970 are 40% silver. Various other years can be up to 99.9% silver. I also keep proofs and commemorative coins. The great thing about coin roll hunting is that the only cost for the hobby is the value of the coins I keep. I return the unwanted coins via my credit union's coin machine. Over the last 4 years of coin roll hunting, I have found over 100 troy ounces of silver. Story 45. Fishing. People might think that it is just staring at the water for hours to catch a fish with a simple stick. But no. It is skillfully observing the water for hours to catch interesting fish using a specialized fishing rod. Story 46. Reading is amazing because you can learn many practical things from books. Story 47. Sewing allows you to find any material pattern you need. I have made pillowcases for Christmas presents featuring universal monsters, sports teams, pets, and all kinds of interests. I have also made quilts using the same idea. The drawback is that fabric is very addictive. You end up with plastic totes full of cloth that you plan to use, Story 48, hunting. Even if you do not see the animal you are hunting, you are outside being quiet in nature and likely getting good exercise. Story 49. Rock hounding is like bird watching but with less waiting. You do not have to be quiet and you get to keep some specimens. You can start with little knowledge and still enjoy it. When I find a shiny, unique, or pretty rock that I do not know the name of but looks really cool, I am the happiest person ever. My attention deficit hyperactivity disorder traits are well suited to rock hounding. Story 50. Reading. The trick is finding genres, series, and authors you actually like. Next thing you know, you are a book enthusiast. Story 51. Philosophy may sound uninteresting, but it is filled with existential terror. Story 52. Fishing. If you are looking for quiet and peace, try it out. Story 53. I collect vinyl records. The best part for me is finding an old album I have been looking for with that old book smell in a bargain bin for $1 to $10. Occasionally, I buy new records, but ordering online does not give me the same feeling I get in a record store. Every time my wife and I travel, we visit local record shops, and those are the souvenirs we use for our vacation memories. Story 54. Square dancing. There is a great community, and it is very different than it looks. You will be mentally exhausted, not physically. Many engineers and programmers enjoy it because it is like a puzzle where someone else calls out the moves, and you never know what is coming next. Story 55. Bike camping. Attach some bags to your bicycle and ride on quiet roads or trails with everything you need for a few days. It is a great way to explore near and far. It always ends up being an adventure. You can easily do it solo or with friends. Story 56. Collecting Lego and Hot Wheels. I collect both and I am 21. Story 57. Ice fishing. Sitting on a frozen lake staring down a hole sounds cold and boring, but once you have the right gear and know what you are doing, it is a really active, dynamic activity. Navigating the winter environment is challenging, and you have to learn a lot about fish behavior, different strategies, baits, and lures that work better in different conditions. Plus, it is always fun to hang out and talk with your friends in a hut. Story 58. Composting. Join the composting community. You can urinate on materials and sometimes they may catch fire. Story 59. Photography, not videography. When people see a photo, they think, cool photo, but they have no clue how much effort goes into it, especially when photographing wildlife. The sneaking, strange positions and angles, the animal running away, light flashing in your face. Photography is a book filled with adventure. Story 60. Cloud watching. The more I do it, the more I love looking at clouds. Story 61. Knot tying leads to practical application, and a well-dressed knot or knots are satisfying to tie. Story 62. Bowling in a league is very fun and enjoyable, especially if you find a relaxed league to join. Story 63. Amateur radio, also known as ham radio. I got interested in radio through General Mobile Radio Service, and will be working on my license soon. Figuring out how to program your radio, get the right antenna, and start reaching people tens, hundreds, or thousands of miles away is really neat. Story 64. Rocketry. I am not an expert, even at the amateur level, but building rockets and launching them thousands of feet into the air is exciting. The best part is attending local rocketry association launches and watching other enthusiasts launch their impressive rockets. The science behind rocketry is surprisingly understandable once you grasp some basic concepts, especially if you are interested in mathematics and physics. Story 65. Knowing the names of all trees in your area, such as one named Fred. Story 66. Birdwatching sounds uninteresting at first, but it is actually fascinating. It gets you outdoors, helps you appreciate nature, and you end up learning a lot about different species. Additionally, the excitement of spotting a rare bird is surprisingly thrilling. Story 67. Disc golf, also known as frisbee golf. On the surface, it looks like a group of grown men throwing frisbees aimlessly in the park. But once you look deeper, you find there is much more involved. Players must learn some physics and aerodynamics to understand the different flight trajectories that discs can take and use those trajectories to find the easiest and most consistent route to the basket. Each round, typically includes a 2 to 3 mile hike. There is nothing more gratifying than watching your shot fly through the trees, bending and curving exactly as you envisioned. There is also nothing more demoralizing than missing a 15-foot putt for birdie. The game teaches mental toughness and promotes camaraderie among like-minded individuals. Don't knock it until you try it. Story 68. Frisbee golf, also known as frolf, is incredibly fun. There is a professional tour full of exceptionally skilled players. What makes it great is having a backpack with about 20 discs, some featuring custom artwork, each flying differently. The courses are often located in beautiful wooded areas near lakes and canyons. When you nail your throw and it curves smoothly through the trees to land exactly where you planned, you will be hooked as well. Story 69. Video games. Of course, they do not directly improve our lives, and maybe we miss some outdoor time, but we have fun. We enjoy something on our own or with friends, and that is totally okay. Story 70. Origami. There is nothing you cannot fold, from a single sheet of paper up to a dragon with hundreds of scales. It is simply incredible. Story 71. Wargaming, mostly traditional board game wargaming, also has a place in online gaming. In a nutshell, it is highly social, intellectually engaging, educational, and constantly evolving. Story 72. Anything that helps build personal skills or has health benefits is a worthwhile hobby, in my opinion. Story 73. Anything, if you go deep enough down the rabbit hole, is interesting. Story 74. I got into freehand knife sharpening, and I have to say it is pretty fun. At first, I just wanted to learn so I could sharpen my kitchen knives, but now I am hooked and trying to master the hair whittling edge. Story 75. Any hobby that brings passion and excitement into your life, in all honesty. Who cares what other people think? Story 76. Beyblade. I was walking around Asakusa in Japan and saw a group of children having a tournament there. I watched for a while and it was fun and looked awesome. Story 77. Model trains immediately popped into my head, and I do not know why. Story 78. Reading novels. Non-readers cannot possibly comprehend the level of excitement during those cliffhangers and climaxes. Story 79. Dungeons and Dragons has been proven to have therapeutic benefits and is a lot of fun. Story 80. Felting is basically repeated stabbing of material until it looks right. It does not require as much skill as some other similar crafts, which I appreciate. Story 81. Basket weaving is not only therapeutic but also results in a lovely, useful item that others appreciate receiving as a gift. Story 82. Making yogurt is not a huge hobby, but it is really nice to get several gallons of milk about to be thrown out and make yogurt better than what is available in stores. I drain it until it becomes almost like cream cheese to use on sandwiches, puddings, or other dishes. I use a little more than 2 quarts of it a week, so it saves me a lot of money. Even regular priced milk yields twice the amount of yogurt for the price. Story 83. Modern Western square dancing can be relaxing and social, or mentally challenging and exciting, depending on your level. The puzzle-solving aspect is underrated, having to not predict next steps by muscle memory and instead rapidly determine what the next formation should look like based on potentially hundreds of different calls as they happen. Yes, it is mostly older adults, but the hobby has a vibrant LGBTQ+ community and a love for playing with and subverting gender roles. Once you learn, you can dance anywhere in the world, as all square dancing is called in English. Story 84. Magic: The Gathering. My roommate and I picked it up when Bloomborough was released and have played at least 5 nights a week since then. Story 85. This is a non-answer, but I am sure most hobbies are secretly awesome. Pretty much any supposedly lame hobbies I have heard of only seem lame from a superficial glance. Hearing passionate people explain their hobbies and what they like about them is always fun and interesting to me. Story 86. Aquariums allow you to play God for a group of fish. Story 87. Golf may seem like a sport for older, wealthy individuals, but it is enjoyable and fun. Trust me. Story 88. Cute movie, good cast. The Big Year. Story 89. Stamp collecting may seem uninteresting, but it actually involves some fascinating prints. Story 90. Warhammer 40,000 does not sound lame. It has amazing lore. Story 91. I do not know if this counts, but I love crossword puzzles. They keep my brain sharp and keep me busy for a bit. Story 92. I kind of hope to join the bird watching trend, but for me, it's been about identifying trees and wood. It started with my wife and me doing the 52 hike challenge every year. It's exactly what you think, one hike a week for a whole year, with a minimum of 1 mile each time. I became quite annoying by constantly asking her about every kind of tree I saw. I finally started using my phone to identify them. Now I'm just annoying all the time. While walking through the woods, I blurt out things like, spruce, that's a red oak. Is that a river birch? I need to look it up. Hang on. Never in a million years would I have thought wood identification would get me so excited. But here we are. Story 93. Disc golf is an outdoor sport that offers camaraderie and is surprisingly complex. It is not expensive and most courses are free. Story 94. Mini painting is very cathartic and zen. Just get some paints and a nice little gray miniature, and next thing you know, you have Zartan the Destroyer ready to defeat a dragon. Story 95. I get teased for remote control cars, but the truth is it is fun. You can achieve some impressive speed and air stunts and you get to tinker. It gets much more involved than I originally thought. Story 96. Golfing. Even when you have a bad day golfing, you still spend hours outside in nature, maybe with friends, enjoying a beer or two away from your stress in life. Story 97. Hiking offers no stress, fresh air, empty paths, silence, and the beauty of both landscapes and details in nature. It provides natural cardiovascular exercise. Story 98. Amateur radio. Amateur radio. Radio signals are very interesting. If you have any interest in science, specifically physics, you would love amateur radio. Story 99. Archery, specifically longbow, is so much fun. I have the Agincourt reenactment in a few days. There will be lots of port to be enjoyed. Story 100. Disc golf sounds boring, but it's a good excuse to hang out with friends outside. Story 101. SMS marketing. You might think it is just sending a bunch of texts to random numbers, but it is actually a treasure trove of creativity and strategy for many businesses and organizations that send text messages considerately to opted-in contacts. Think about it. You are crafting clever messages that can instantly make people smile, inspire action, or even help them remember their grandmother's birthday. Everyone benefits when we treat each other well by sharing important, personalized information through concise, effective text messages. Story 102. Painting and modeling Warhammer 40,000 models. I don't really have time to play the game, but I love painting miniatures. Story 103. Any hobby that makes you happy, because that is the very meaning of life. Story 104. Disc golf is hiking with a purpose. It is enjoyable and challenging enough to keep you improving for years. Story 105. Building dollhouses and miniature versions of shops. I love making tiny replicas of real-life objects. Story 106. Metal detecting. I have never tried it, but the older I get, the more fun I think this could be. Story 107. Coloring sounds boring and childish, but it is a great way to relieve stress. It is also fun to explore different color combinations. Especially when coloring detailed images, the end result is always satisfying. Story 108. Mycology, botany, crocheting, programming, and miniatures. Anything can be taken to an impressive level. Story 109. Cowboy action shooting. Story 110. Being fascinated by the Hoover Dam. You would be surprised how organically I can bring up the Hoover Dam and fun facts about the dam and its impact on the entirety of the United States. Also Caton and always being the kind of American worth fighting for American pride. Story 111. As a neurodivergent reclusive shut-in, I am going to vote for Warhammer. I have always loved lore and all the other aspects of the hobby. Building models, crafting terrain, and spending endless hours alone painting 2-inch tall plastic army figures. Someday I hope to go way out on a limb and play a game with a real live person. Seriously though, miniature painting is what gave me a little passion and the will to keep going when things were very hard. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.